Throughout history, many people have kicked the bucket in ways you wouldn't have even thought possible. Here is our list of the strangest, silliest, and unluckiest ends of famous figures throughout history. By the end of this video, you'll probably feel grateful for the fact that you're alive. Aeschylus was an ancient Greek playwright who is regarded as one of the most influential playwrights in history. He effectively invented the Greek tragedy, laying the foundations of Western theater that endure to this day. Aeschylus also fought in the Persian Wars, participating in some of the bloodiest and most important battles in between the Greeks and the Persians. However, having survived this incredibly dangerous conflict, Aeschylus's life came to an end in one of the stupidest ways imaginable. According to the later Latin writer Valerius Maximus, Aeschylus was killed after an eagle dropped a tortoise on his head after it mistook it for a rock suitable for shattering the shell. The 67-year-old man died from the brutal head trauma in 455 BC. While the accuracy of this story is impossible to confirm, eagles have been known to drop tortoises from a great height in the past. Franz Reichelt, also known as the Flying Tailor, was a French-Austrian inventor born in 1878. A tailor by trade, Reichelt became obsessed with creating a wearable parachute suit to save aviators during emergencies. Though his early designs failed in tests using dummies, Reichelt remained confident in his invention. On February 4, 1912, he received permission to test his parachute suit from the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Despite concerns from onlookers and officials, Reichelt insisted on jumping himself, remaining confident in his invention. Tragically, Reichelt's parachute, which had seemed to be only half open, folded around him almost immediately, and he fell over 57 meters without a parachute. After a few seconds, he struck the frozen floor in front of a large crowd, dying not long after. His death was captured on film and stands as a reminder to many of the dangers of overconfidence. Humphrey de Bohun was the 4th Earl of Hereford in Essex, a powerful English nobleman and military leader known as a staunch opponent of King Edward II. A brave rebel, Humphrey played a key role in the opposition to the king's tyranny, but died in one of the most ghastly ways possible on the battlefield. While leading rebel forces in Yorkshire, Humphrey bravely led a charge against loyalist forces across a wooden bridge in 1322. Although the details have been called into question by some historians, the noble's death was apparently so awful that it severely affected his men. While fighting on the bridge, one of the loyalists who had concealed himself under the bridge thrust his pike upwards between the planks, skewering Humphrey through the anus. The soldier then began twisting the iron pike as it made its way into Humphrey's intestines. His dying screams reportedly turned the advance into a panic. Despite his bravery, Humphrey's grisly end showed that no one is invincible, and the brutality of his demise certainly sapped his fighters of much of their fighting spirit. After being crowned in 1100 AD, Henry I ruled as King of England for an impressive 35 years. During his reign, he managed to strengthen royal authority in England by reforming the legal system. His reign was marked by administrative efficiency and increased unification and strength of England and Normandy, ensuring they were ruled as one stable kingdom. However, the king's death was far less glamorous than his lifestyle. While away on a hunting break in northern France, Henry was said to have indulged heavily in lampreys, a supposedly delicious, jawless fish popular with the medieval nobility. Although the account is foggy, one chronicler claimed that his obsession with lampreys ultimately killed him, albeit through food poisoning, severe indigestion, or complications from gout. Despite surviving several wars and rebellions, Henry I ultimately met his demise as a result of poor diet. Not exactly the most glamorous way to go out. Unlike some of our previous inclusions, our next death doesn't involve the fall of a great ruler or historical genius. Unfortunately, Richard the Raker's demise is infamous not for any grand legacy, but for being one of the most grotesque and unfortunate ways for an ordinary person to meet their end. During the Tudor period, gong farming was the practice of collecting human waste from cesspits and public latrines to use as fertilizer for crops. Despite its unpleasant nature, it was an essential task in agricultural communities where manure was in high demand but often scarce. Not only was the work unbearably foul-smelling, but it was also surprisingly dangerous, posing risks to the health and safety of those involved. The dangers and smell made the job quite well-paying, but meant that gong farmers were often avoided by others in the community. Gong farming was physically grueling, with poorly ventilated cesspits and rotting ceilings posing constant dangers. In 1326, Richard the Raker tragically drowned after the pit's ceiling collapsed, apparently knocking him into the human waste. Historical accounts regarding Richard are sketchy, but it's not unlikely that at least one gong farmer met their end drawing in feces at one point in this treacherous line of work. Milo of Croton was an ancient Greek wrestler, renowned for his extraordinary strength and success in the Olympic Games. Born in the 6th century BC, Milo won 6 Olympic titles and numerous other victories, making him one of the most famous athletes of his time. His feats of strength were legendary, such as carrying a bull on his shoulders and eating an entire animal in a single sitting. Milo's death, however, was not so glamorous. According to ancient sources, Milo was wandering through the forest when he found an old tree trunk with wedges inserted into it. In an attempt to test his strength, Milo placed his hands and, perhaps his feet, into the cleft of the trunk and tried to split apart the wood. He succeeded in loosening the wedges, which fell out, but the trunk closed on his hands, trapping him. There, according to the tale, he was eaten alive by wolves. Arthur Aston was an English soldier who played a significant role in the English Civil War, where royalists and parliamentarians battled it out across the British Isles to decide if the monarchy would remain or be replaced by the rule of Parliament. Despite a long and eventful military career, Arthur Aston is most remembered for his brutal death in 1649. After his forces were defeated in the siege of Drogheda, Aston surrendered and was captured by the parliamentarians. In a particularly savage act, some sources claim that they removed his wooden leg and beat him to death with it. His death became a symbol of the brutal nature of the siege and the fierce animosity between the royalists and parliamentarians during the Civil War. Ivan the Terrible was the first Tsar of Russia, ruling from 1547 until his death in 1584. His reign was marked by significant territorial expansion as he conquered much of Siberia and consolidated power, but it was also infamous for brutal cruelty, including the mass executions of perceived enemies by the Oprichnina, his secret police force. Ivan faced constant danger, with numerous assassination attempts and threats from both within his court and the broader nobility. Ivan survived multiple conspiracies and uprisings, with his eventual death coming far more unexpectedly. Historical accounts suggest that Ivan eventually died while playing chess with his associate, collapsing in the middle of a game. It's likely that the brutal ruler died of a stroke. Having avoided many of the dangers in his life, Ivan could not avoid death by a board game. Francis Bacon was an influential English philosopher, statesman, scientist, and author, best known for developing the method that led to modern scientific inquiry, advocating for a systematic approach to research and experimentation. Essentially, Bacon was responsible for developing the methodology that formed the foundation of the scientific method for conducting experiments properly. Bacon's experiments were often conducted with little regard for health and safety, involving volatile and hazardous chemicals that carried risks of explosions or poisoning. While he survived these close calls with dangerous substances, his death came in a far more foolish way, resulting from a simple, ill-considered experiment. In 1626, while conducting experiments on food preservation, Bacon decided to test the effects of freezing meat by stuffing a chicken with snow. During the experiment, he caught a chill, which led to a severe case of pneumonia. Bacon's attempt to explore a scientific idea in such an impractical way resulted in his untimely death at the age of 65. Bacon survived rampant outbreaks of disease, imprisonment in the Tower of London, and the dangers of early chemical experiments, just to be killed after stuffing a chicken with snow. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past.